It is the greatest two words in sports. Game 7. The Sixers with an incredible win today at home in Game 6 to force a Game 7 on the road, shipping up to Boston. Saturday afternoon will likely be the time. This is the Sixers wrap-up show presented by and powered by 97.5 The Fanatic. No Sean Brace today. Our guy is taking a much-deserved weekend off. He's down in Myrtle Beach enjoying his birthday weekend. So it's just Sean Barnard and myself, Sam Oshtry, running the ship tonight. But we're going to steer in the right direction. We have a lot to talk about. Sean, first, just overall thoughts on an incredible Game 6 to force a Game 7 in Boston.
Yeah, I know we don't have Sean Brace's soundboard getting us fired up with a little bump-to-dump intro right here, but I got a song for you, Sam Oshtry. It's We Want Boston. I love every bit about the chants coming back out. I love every bit about the way the crowd was into this game from start to finish. And I love every bit about the way that team showed up tonight, man. That was an inspiring performance from the Sixers team. And we will get into the Game 7 ramifications. We will talk through all that. But one thing that I want to be made clear right off the bat here is you have to have respect for the way that this Sixers team has battled, the way that this Sixers team has fought and scrapped and brought the necessary energy in this series. This was a series in which Celtics pundits were talking like it is insane if they drop a single game in this series. Well, we got a Game 7 for all the marbles on the table right here. From top to bottom, an awesome performance. They brought it right from opening tip and ready to dive into it.
For everyone hopping in now, join the comments. This is our Sixers wrap-up show presented by and powered by 97.5 The Fanatic. I'm Sam Oshtry along with Sean Barnard. No Sean Brace today. Hopefully he'll join us for Game 7 Saturday afternoon, which, just to hit the logistics real quick, that should be Saturday afternoon, 4:30, I believe, if the Nuggets beat the Timberwolves tonight, which is going on right now, to force that Game 7. That would be at 7:30, and the Sixers Boston in Boston would be at 4:30. We got a lot to get to, but I just want to start off by saying this was the vision of the summer of 2024. Yes. And it took almost 2 years for it to really come to fruition in a big moment. But this is what the vision was when Daryl Morey signed Paul George and paired him as a big three alongside Maxey and Joel Embiid. And that was lauded as the best offseason move. The Sixers were the winners of the offseason. And we don't need to go back to what happened last year and then what even happened this year and the lack of availability between Paul George and Joel Embiid and everybody else. But this was the vision. We saw it for the first time in a big moment. And I don't think it's hyperbole to say this might have been the best I've ever seen a Sixers team play since Joel Embiid was drafted over a decade ago. Considering the moment, the circumstance, what was at stake, the jobs that were on the line for a lot of people tonight.
Sure.
This was an incredible performance, not just from him, but from everybody involved. And we'll dive. I don't know if you want to go start with the defense, the rebounding, the Maxey and Embiid pick and roll. Take it wherever you want. But this is what the vision was of the summer of 2024.
And to your point, it's amazing that we have this many positives to pick from. That this was a top-down, complete team performance. But I want to start right with Paul George, the message that you just hit on right there. For starters, just to lay out the stats for what he produced today, that Paul George played 40 minutes of action, finished with 23 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals and a block shot, 5 for 9 from beyond the three-point arc. But where I think the bulk of his damage was done was on the defensive end. I think he sets the tone for this Sixers team, and that's a large part of the reason why he's here. Yes, it's obviously great. The level that he can hit three-pointers, the creation that he has. Miss me with any Tobias Harris comparisons for Paul George, 9-time All-Star, future Hall of Famer Paul George. But defensively, going toe-to-toe with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and even down the stretch in Game 5, man, he was so crucial to that. I thought he was the difference maker tonight. And Embiid and Maxey were awesome. Edgecombe had some really nice flashes. Oubre had some really nice flashes. Everyone has positives to break down. But if I'm giving my crowning moment for why the Sixers won tonight, I think this was the Paul George game.
Absolutely. And Paul George had a great series all around, even before Embiid came back. And the numbers aren't necessarily eye-popping. I mean, you look at tonight, and he was 23 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. But he's been really efficient with his touches all series, and he's doing it on both ends. And this is, again, what you envision. You knew you had a budding superstar in Tyrese Maxey. You knew you had the MVP of the league. Paul George was coming in to be a third fiddle, to be a great catch-and-shoot guy, a plug-and-play guy. But when he wants to isolate, he can have his moments in isolation. He can have his moments in the pick-and-roll ball handle. And the pick-and-roll ball handling role. That's what you're seeing tonight. And that's what you've been seeing this entire series, where he is averaging, coming into tonight, or scoring 1.54 points per possession in isolation. That is the number one most efficient mark of any player in the playoffs in isolation. That's incredible. Coming into tonight, shooting 53.8% on his threes. That is the second best among any player playing in the playoffs behind OG Anunoby, who's just been scorching hot all series. So Paul George is doing exactly what you envisioned when you signed him. If you want him to get a rep as the pick and roll guy with Drummond or Embiid, he can do that. And the Celtics are going to sit in the drop. Paul George is going to make you pay. You want him to have an isolation possessions, he can score on anybody. This is peak Paul George we're watching. It's just he's getting much more limited touches than we were used to in Indiana or OKC or with the Clippers. But this is the efficient version that you imagine coming in. And then defensively, we talked about the offense. He's been incredible defensively. We're going to talk about what the Sixers are doing to kind of shut off the Celtics from three-point land, but it's a lot of how they're cutting off the Celtics' drives. And what that is Paul George is matched up with Tatum or Brown pretty consistently. He's done such a great job cutting off those guys' drives, preventing them from getting downhill, forcing them into tough shots. So the two-way player that he's been this series is exactly what everyone thought they were getting 2 summers ago. It's just finally materializing.
Yeah, it's been nice that my biggest complaint about Paul George, and I'm putting to the side the injury issues, the suspension, I'm putting all that to the side for right now. My biggest complaint is I just want more, that I want him to play more aggressive.
Availability.
That's been the story of the series. And even beyond just availability of, I want more shots for this guy. I want there to be a clearer effort to create him looks. And I thought he was more in attack mode tonight than has been the case. The 17 field goal attempts, his previous high in the series was 14. He topped out at below 10 in one of the games in the series. When you see him playing with a will to, I want to enforce myself from a scoring standpoint, it opens up a ton for this Sixers team. And again, with all this offensively, I do think defense is the story. The switchability, the way that he can just really blow up some of these pick and roll actions, get his hand in there. He's the guy that they wanted to sign right there. And for the 25-game suspension, I understand it did not come at an ideal time of the year. And you can certainly make the point that if they win one more game over that stretch, that maybe they aren't even in the play-in and facing the Celtics in an opening round. But beyond that, this is the best version of Paul George that we've ever seen in a Sixers uniform, and I'm happy he arrived at the right time.
I mean, everybody was talking about you want to tank that playing game to play Detroit as the 8th seed, or if we avoid the play and then we'll play the Knicks. I mean, this is ending up being a really good matchup for the Sixers. And I think we both believed, and I think a lot of Sixers fans believe, that if Embiid was healthy this entire series, the Sixers are easily winning this series. I don't think the Celtics team is very good. And let's talk about the three-point conversation, because that's what everybody's talking about. But when the Celtics shoot well from three, they win. But when they don't, they're not going to win. This is now the second straight game where they're below 30% from three. Tonight, they were 12 for 41, 29% from deep. But it's not really the lack of volume, which they want to shoot 46 to 53s a game, if you ask Joe Mazzulla. But it's not really the lack of volume of the percentage. It's the Sixers' credit, and I tweeted out this clip earlier today. It was a few clips. The Sixers are doing such a good job cutting off the Celtics' drives and preventing them from getting downhill. That's how the Celtics get their threes. They shoot a lot of threes because they get a lot of open threes. And that starts the drive and kick. That's Tatum and Brown getting downhill, collapsing the defense. When you go back and watch the Sixers in Game 5, the Sixers were not in rotation a lot because the Celtics couldn't get downhill. So that's a credit to Paul George, Kelly Oubre, who's been guarding Tatum or Brown a lot of the series, VG Edgecombe. Even Maxey is fighting defensively when he's on Peyton Pritchard for stretches. These guys are cutting off drives, not overhelping, letting them play one-on-one, but being good point of attack defenders. And then the Celtics have done a really bad job of kind of drawing Embiid out of the paint, because he's just sitting in drop coverage and the Celtics can't get him away from the rim. So that's all cutting off drives and preventing them from getting good, clean threes. So it's not the volume of the percentage. It's the Sixers defense forcing tough threes that should be the headline.
Yeah, all 3-point attempts are not created equal, and that is a major point. But to one thing that you hit on there that I think should be the emphasis is my biggest concern coming to this series is the way that these teams stylistically, from the Celtics offense and the Sixers defense matchup, there was a serious advantage to the Celtics' willingness and ability to launch three-pointers right there. To his credit, Nick Nurse, who both of us have been largely critical of, has really adjusted the defensive tendencies of this team. They're not over-helping to create those looks. They're allowing guys to defend in one-on-one situations right there. And each of these Sixers players are meeting the challenge. VJ Edgecombe standing on his head for possessions. Tyrese Maxey digging in and defending in one-on-one settings right there. And the way that they're not over helping to create those looks, that's the complete That's the series to an extent right there. They've taken away what Boston's identity is right there. And that's why they're having this blueprint to success. It's been probably the most shocking takeaway for me so far is I think Nick Nurse has won the chess match between these two coaches to this point, and I did not see that coming whatsoever coming into the series.
Neither did I. I thought the Celtics had a decent chance of winning the East because they had the coaching advantage. Nick Nurse is coaching an incredible series.
Yeah.
And we talk a lot about 82-game players versus 16-game players. So like regular season versus playoff players. Draymond Green's a 16-game player. What about regular season coaches versus playoff coaches? And
sure.
I think Nick Nurse is disappointed a lot in the regular season. He's a 16-game playoff coach. I mean, he is a guy that you want is going to win chess matches, is going to be creative and going to adjust. And he's adjusted way more than Joe Mazzulla. And I was just talking about it earlier, but the Celtics want to get Embiid away from the rim because he's just sitting back there and making it really hard for the Celtics to get to the rim and get downhill. So they're running a lot of screen and rolls. And when they're sitting and drop, or when Embiid's sitting and drop, Tatum can come off and hit that 3-ball. But he wasn't doing it as successfully tonight. And I think part of that is, number one, the Sixers' point of attack defense staying attached to him on these screens. But it's just the Celtics struggling to get Embiid away from the rim. And if they don't figure out that equation for Game 7, then they're going home early.
Yeah, and Joel Embiid is certainly not the defender that he once was. He's not a guy that is in those conversations for defensive player of the year, all defensive team to the level that he was at the start of his career. But the dude still has it mentally, man. Like some of the hedges that he's decided to bring, some of the switches, you can see him talking through the entire defensive scheme down there. He can still be effective with just his mind of being in the right spot, of making sure that he is cutting off lanes and making life difficult for these opponents right there. He doesn't have his fastball defensively compared to what was the case at the start of his career, but he's still finding ways to be effective, which I think is a huge testament to Joel. And straight up, I don't think we've acknowledged to this point, it's miraculous that Joel Embiid looks like this based on the context of how this season has gone, how the appendix surgery popped up in that matter of time. This dude is 21 days removed from an emergency appendectomy surgery, and he looks like the best damn player on the court right there. That is absurd in itself, and I'm happy for Joel, man. Like, he needs this moment. This is a dude in all-time great talent who's been starved of postseason success, some by his own doing for sure, and much more of it I certainly would attribute to the situation around him. I want nothing more than to see one playoff run behind Joel Embiid, with him leading the charge, being that guy. That opportunity is in front of him and the Sixers team with Game 7 with the next challenge right there.
Sixers wrap-up show, powered by 97.5 The Fanatic. I'm Sam Oshtry alongside Sean Barnard. We're going to continue rolling on. No Sean Brace tonight. I know he's sick to his stomach that he can't be here with us tonight, because he was a guy that was pounding his chest that the Sixers are contenders back 3-4 months ago.
Can I push back on it a little, though? I don't think he's allowed to lead the bandwagon. He hopped off.
He was the earliest one on the bandwagon, and then he jumped off the bandwagon.
Correct.
And now he wants back on.
Wagon kept rolling is all I'm saying, Sean Brace.
Yeah. I don't blame you. The Sixers win this one 106-93, forcing a Game 7 in Boston. That'll probably be Saturday at 4:30 p.m. Not 100% there. Depends on the Nuggets-Wolves game later. But I would pencil in Saturday, 4:30 p.m. in Boston. Celtics-Sixers Game 7. To read off some stats, Paul George, 23 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. Tyrese Maxey, 30 points, 5 assists. Joel Embiid, 19 points, 10 rebounds, 8 assists. And then Kelly Oubre, who I thought had a really good game too, 14 points, 9 rebounds. And VG Edgecombe, 14 points, 8 rebounds. The bench only contributed 6 points. I mean, Quentin Grimes only scored 2 points in 22 minutes on 1 for 6 shooting after he was the big reason why the Sixers won in Game 5. But I want to ask you about the Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid pairing and the pick and roll, because we had a conversation, and we didn't want to have the conversation, but we did because there was a lot of online chatter about, is Tyrese Maxey worse playing alongside Joel Embiid, which was always a ridiculous conversation that we called out from the rip. But it's when you watch Tyrese Maxey without Joel Embiid, he's a really good player for sure, no doubt about it. When you watch him with Embiid, he's a bona fide superstar, and you saw that tonight, how well he plays off the Embiid and how well those two guys play together. What did you see from that duo, and what have you seen from them over the last 3 games?
It's fascinating because whenever you think of like the guard and big man pairings like that, like you think of the pick and rolls, you think of the Chris Paul archetype, the James Harden archetype, that you're just kind of snaking screens, navigating, throwing lobs, that kind of thing. That is not at all how these two operate. That there's so much more. There's so much more diverse options they're able to bring defense or offensively there. Joel, obviously the gravity that he's always going to command. You get that guy in a one-on-one setting against anyone in the league, you feel pretty good about your odds. And then when you factor in the athletic advantages that a guy like Tyrese Maxey has, who can get downhill at a rate that I straight up think no one else in the league can get to at that level. And you pair that with a dude who's grown into an elite shooter, even while he's battling through whatever this finger issue is that he is dealing with. And I do think, to his credit, he's kept his mouth shut, has not really said a word about it, continues to battle through, and you can see it's bothering him right there. But when it is clicking to its fullest, the Embiid and Maxey duo, it's a ton of motion. This guy getting downhill, the little drop-off pass between the legs where Tyrese creates a three, him coming off screens. Like, there's just so many different options that they're able to bring because of how diverse these guys' skill sets are. It's not just like your standard guard big man pairing. There's a lot more that they're able to branch off. And I think we've seen this grow year in and year out between these two. And to see it sort of really come together and blossom on the largest stage right there, that's what both these guys deserve. That's what both these guys have earned. And the Sixers are obviously reaping the benefits.
It's the best pick and roll duo in the NBA. And I can't find anybody who's close, honestly. And it's an impossible equation to solve for opposing defenses, because what the Celtics have been doing is they've been sitting in this drop coverage. And I know that's been a trendy term. Broadcasters are talking about it and everything, but that means Nikola Vucevic or Cato, whoever it is, Luka Garza, whatever center the Celtics have on the floor, they're just having him sit in the lane. He's not coming up to the level of the screen because they're worried about Embiid and they don't want Embiid to get those catches. What that is creating is so many opportunities on these Embiid screens for Maxey to come off, and he's shooting over 40% from three in the series, so he's capitalizing on them. So that's really why Maxey's benefited so much from playing alongside Embiid, because it changes the Celtics' entire coverage, because you can't give up the Embiid short roll pass where he's just so dominant with that little midi pull up short jumper, or from three. He hasn't been great from three the last 3 games, but he's definitely a threat from there. And then he's such a bully when he's attacking the rim. So that's one equation. The other thing is they remind me of Draymond and Steph a little bit. And I know that's crazy because that's the greatest two-man maybe in NBA history when you consider the chemistry and everything they've accomplished. But you're seeing kind of the pass-ahead pitch back a lot between Embiid and Maxey. And that's resulting in a lot of threes. And that's just chemistry and all the reps those guys have built together over the years. So that's another thing. And then the last thing I'm seeing between those two guys is when the Celtics are in drop coverage, that really means that the guard who's fighting over the screen has to stay attached to Maxey, because he doesn't want to, because it's really on the guard to make sure he can stay attached as Maxey's coming off the ball screen, because it's on him to contest. So you're seeing Jordan Walsh or Derek White, whoever's guarding Tyrese Maxey, those guys are staying super attached to Tyrese Maxey as he's going to get the ball screen. And what Maxey's doing is he's just going back door. And Embiid has become a really good passer from that hub spot, that top of the key spot. And he's delivering great passes to Maxey back door. So although they have so many different counters to whatever you're going to throw at them, and they have such great chemistry, and in their own right, they're superstar level players. So when you really scour the entire NBA, they're the best pick and roll duo, the best two-man going in the game right now.
Yeah, both guys are really 3-level scorers, and you just simply can't cut off all those options in one defensive rep. And to Maxey's credit right here, he was pretty bothered by the way that Derek White and Jordan Walsh, particularly Derek White, I thought in the early part of this series, the way he fought over screens and was able to kind of contest on the back right there. I thought Maxey had a really difficult time with that, and he's found his counters. He's found ways to adjust. He's found ways to make sure that this is not bothersome to the way that they go about their offensive process right there. So it's pretty cool to watch the way that these guys have really blossomed together right there. And I mean, that's the identity of the Sixers offense. Like, we can talk all about Paul George, who we deservingly gave flowers to. We can talk about Kelly Oubre. At the end of the day, it is on Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid to carry this overall team right there, and they did their job tonight. And I also think Joel deserves a little bit more credit for being willing to take a step back at times. It's not the easiest job as the guy that's been the face of the franchise, the clear best player, a former MVP, to say there's going to be stretches of this game where another guy needs to take over. Tyrese, run the show for a little bit. Go pour in 8 consecutive points and lead a little bit of spark. I can defer. I can be a playmaker. And that's like an area of personal growth that I think we've seen from Joel in recent years, and especially this season.
The other thing I want to talk about as we're talking about the defense and defensive effort and intensity, the defensive rebounding was magnificent tonight. The Celtics only grabbed 8 offensive rebounds, and that's what we've been talking about all series. And that was what Nick Nurse put at the top of his whiteboard. He talked about, and he was like, offensive rebounding, not limiting their offensive rebounding, controlling the glass is a huge key to the series.
And very connected to the three-point conversation as well. Very connected, those two.
Because that's when the Celtics get a lot of their kick-out threes or open threes is off these kickouts from offensive rebounds. So that was a great job by the Sixers to control the defensive glass. I want to ask you, were you a little surprised that Joe Mazzulla kind of threw the white flag? They cut it. The Celtics cut it to 14 with around 7.5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. And Tatum was on the bench, but I think that was because he left the game, and we'll talk about his status for Game 7. But he didn't even put Jaylen Brown back in. He kind of let a lot of his second unit try to come back in that game, and ultimately they couldn't. So it was a little bit of a white flag throw from Mazzulla. Get ready for Game 7, load the buses up. We're never coming back to Philly, and we never want to. But that's were you kind of surprised that Joe Mazzulla pulled that?
Yeah, and I do want to dig into the Tatum conversation after this, but I was surprised. I can tell you, sitting here in my living room watching the game, that I did not feel that I am fully comfortable that this is for sure a victory just yet to the level at which Joe Mazzulla, and even during that stretch, like they cut it to 12, they cut it to 14. It wasn't like a foregone conclusion that this game was set in stone to this point. It was premature from what I expected, especially a guy like Joe Mazzulla, who seems so willing to be, an insane person to compete on every single level right there. I do think that they ultimately, as this game was trending, because straight up, the Sixers were the better team from start to finish in this matchup tonight. And really, especially the second half of the previous game, but really the better part of last game too, they've just been a more complete, better basketball team than what the Celtics have put on display. I think he sort of read that out and said, like, we need to sort of retreat a little bit. We need to get back, figure some things out, and really put our best effort forward in Game 7 right there, because it wasn't happening tonight. And I think even if Jaylen Brown was out there throwing all his flailing elbows and shoves and everything that he does on the offensive end, I think even if he did bring those guys back in the game, the Sixers were still going to win this matchup. So Joe Mazzulla called it as he saw it. But yes, to answer your question, I was surprised it happened that early.
The Celtics, this era of Celtics basketball with Tatum, Brown, and then Mazzulla for the last 4 years, they've won a ton of basketball games, and they've won a ton of playoff series, and they've won an NBA title. But something that I think is undeniable about them is they unravel quickly, and they will quit when they're punched in the face. And you saw that they won a title for sure. I don't think they were punched in the face that much during that run. And then they come back next year, and the Knicks, or last year, what it was, the year after they won the title, and the Knicks just punched them in the face. They're down 20 in 2 of those games, the Knicks are, and they come back from 2 20-point deficits. When things aren't going well for the Celtics, it spirals quickly, and they unravel quickly. And I think that's what you've seen in all 3 of the Sixers wins. When they haven't really been particularly close wins. It hasn't come down to serious clutch time, and I worry about that for the Sixers because the Celtics have 2 really clutch players in Brown and Tatum. But it hasn't come down to that because the Celtics will just unravel when you punch them in the face. So I think I saw that tonight, and I think that's something that is kind of defined the Celtics era in a lot of ways, and that's why I'm pretty confident heading into a Game 7.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to act like the Sixers have had the stellar record for showing up in these kind of moments right there. But
but I think it's interesting when you consider the Celtics are a champion. Like the core of this group has won a championship, and they've won a lot of games, but they still kind of unravel when they're punched in the mouth.
But even to that point, like for sure, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are like the headliners of that. When you think about like the fabric of that championship roster, like I think Drew Holiday, I think Al Horford, I think a lot of guys that aren't on this roster right now. So this is a more youthful Celtics squad. This is not exactly like a run it back type situation where this team won a championship last year. There's been a ton of roster turnover. 3 of their top 7 players in minutes from last season are not on this team. This is a different Celtics team that we should view in that light right there. And by the way, let's talk a little bit about the head of the snake. Shout out to our guy, Danny Smalls, popping in the chat saying Tatum calf injury has him in doubt for Game 7. I'll just say this, Sam Oshtry, and I'll allow you to give your opinion. Jason Tatum has a long and exciting career ahead of him. I think it would be incredibly short-sighted to try and make this guy play at a level if he's not at 100%. I understand he rushed back from the Achilles injury, and if anything, I would say that is more the reason to make sure he is 100% before stepping on the floor. So if I'm the Celtics right now, I would be very careful with my management of Jason Tatum if that means leaving him out for Game 7 in Boston.
Yeah, it's definitely the big story going into Game 7. And as we're going to talk about what we expect to unfold, Tatum's status is the biggest thing. I mean, the Celtics aren't winning this game if Tatum doesn't play. That's just as clear as day. The Sixers will be favored. I don't know if there's even a lineup if you want to check that real quick, but the Celtics aren't winning this game if Tatum doesn't play. And we know Tatum just had Achilles surgery. He just came back from Achilles surgery in 300 days or something like that. It was an incredibly quick recovery that we don't see. We've seen guys very recently in recent NBA history who are dealing with calf injuries rush to play in the playoffs, and then they deal with another Achilles, or they deal with an Achilles injury. It happened with Kevin Durant in the 2019 NBA Finals. He came back from a calf injury that wasn't smart. Boom, that led to an Achilles injury. Tyrese Halliburton in the NBA Finals last year was dealing with a calf injury that he definitely should not have been playing, but it credits him for gutting it out in a Game 7, first quarter, Achilles injury. If Tatum suffers another Achilles injury, I mean, I don't even want to consider that possibility as a basketball fan, but that's career. That could be seriously career ending. So it's something that if it's even the slightest chance that this calf injury could lead to something more serious, it probably is in the Celtics' best interest. I know you're being facetious when you're saying that, but it is true. It's probably in the Celtics' best interest to not risk this one and it's not punting on the season, but you're probably not going to win that game, and just go on to next season where you can revamp the roster around Tatum and Brown, because this was supposed to be a gap year anyway. I mean, in the Celtics building, they probably didn't believe that, and they wanted to still compete for a championship and thought Tatum might come back early. But this roster was never good enough to really win a title. And if they end up winning and going on playing the Knicks, the Celtics are going to get smoked by the Knicks. I don't think they stand a chance. So if I'm the Celtics, and I don't know the extent of this calf injury, but I do know that calf injuries have oftentimes led to Achilles injuries. If there's a slight chance of that, I'm saying, Tatum, you're sitting this one out. We're looking to next season already. So that's a possibility, and we're probably not going to know that decision until a couple hours before game time on Saturday. But that's something that's going to be the biggest story over the next 48 hours.
Yeah, and I certainly am coming at this with a little bit of a facetious tone as far as a Sixers perspective right there. But I do think there is truth to there will be some difficult conversation in that Celtics 100%. Organization. And we'll see exactly what the status is. I just judging off his facial expressions as we saw him, they showed the clip of him, running and jumping and doing cuts and that kind of thing. It didn't look like Jason Tatum was very confident in his calf and body and everything right there. So we'll see what the status is right there. It's going to be very interesting. I do have a number for you for Game 7 right here. So I want to hear your guess, Sam Oshtry. If you are Mr. Odds Maker, and no free ads on the Sixers wrap up here, we won't give a where these numbers are coming from. But what would your guess be for the line being set?
So the Tatum injury kind of throws a wrench in it, and how much that's factored in. With Tatum, I think the Celtics would definitely be favored. I probably would say 3.5-point favorites in the Celtics' favor. I'll say with Tatum's injury, 2.5.
Wow. We have an 8.5 and 7.5 for the numbers that I'm seeing right now.
Holy smokes. Are you serious?
Yeah. I was surprised by that as well. And they were, I believe, 6.5 is where it went off at tonight. I mean, what we're seeing is that the odds makers and that I think the general public, no respect for the Sixers, man. And I kind of love that, to be perfectly honest. I kind of love that there's not, that people aren't buying it. Let this team be the underdogs. Let this team be doubted. I think they kind of feed off it. I think this has brought out the best in them.
The Sixers are the better team. What are you watching? The Sixers are the better team with Embiid. They're 2-3. They've won 2 out of 3 games since Embiid came back, and the first one was Embiid's first game back. It was hard to get into rhythm and all that, so you can excuse it. The Sixers are the much better team, and by the way, the Celtics have had not a lot of good luck at home in the postseason. I think the Celtics actually like playing on the road more, which is why part of me was scared for tonight playing on the road. So I'm shocked by that line. I wonder how much it goes down if Tatum ultimately comes out, but it seems like based on what we've known about what Tatum's worth to the spread, it's usually 2 points. So it won't come down much. So the Sixers are going to enter this game as somewhat significant underdogs as the better team. And they just went into Boston in Game 5 and won pretty handily. So that is a shocking number to me.
Yeah, definitely way higher than I would have guessed as well. I think 5.5 is what my brain had settled on before looking it up. And obviously it's even more than that right there. The point that I think should be made clear about these back-to-back victories is this was not a situation in which a team, hung around for a while and managed to have a scoring burst at the end to get the win there. This team walked them down, man. Like, this team looked like the better team because they are. They look better in every facet of the game. That first half of the night and the second half of game 5 right there were equally impressive to me of just watching the way they dominated that. They held the Celtics to 14 points in the third quarter. We talked all season about these third quarter woes from the Sixers team. Everything looks like it's clicking, man. And sometimes it is about, in professional sports, getting hot at the right time. There's been a ton of unique situations that have been thrown at this Sixers team. It does feel like, to some extent, it has caused them to band together, buy in, and believe in each other. And I'm kind of buying what this team is selling me.
Yeah, so am I. And if you want to put that comment up, hard for me to believe the Sixers are the better team. When they lost 2 games by 32, one in Boston, one in Philly. One of those was without Joel Embiid, game 1. So throw that one out the window. Embiid is here. And the other was when Embiid, it was his first game back. So I'm excusing that. Like, the last 2 games, what we've seen is that the Sixers team with Joel Embiid on the floor and how much it unlocks for Tyrese Maxey. Paul George is playing the series of his life. And if you get a little bit extra from a VG Edgecombe, that's a plus, but you know he's going to defend. You need a Quentin Grimes, Kelly Oubre. One of those guys has to make shots because they're going to double Embiid pretty aggressively, I think. And they kind of been timidly doing that. But it's going to come off of Kelly Oubre or it's going to come off of Quentin Grimes. And you're going to, if you're the Celtics, you're going to say, okay, well, we're good with one of those 2 guys beating us, nailing 3. So one of those 2 guys is going to have to play. I trust Nick Nurse at this point to push the right buttons. Like, last game, it was Quentin Grimes was playing over Kelly Oubre in the second half. Tonight, it was Kelly Oubre because he was playing much better on both ends. It's just there's going to be a lot of chess matches within the game 7 as it unfolds. It is worth noting the Celtics were really good this year without Jason Tatum. But again, the playoffs are a different beast in the regular season. They were an overachieving regular season team, and their center spot is just bad right now. Like, Embiid is torching anybody. It is bully ball if Vucevic is matched up against him. Kata has dealt with foul trouble all series. He only had 3 tonight. He has more resistance, but if Embiid is in a rhythm and he's knocking down that 12 to 15 jumper, it's game over. He's the best player in basketball right now if he is unlocking that part. And that's just like true. He really is. He looks like the best player in basketball right now. So the Celtics just have a center problem. And I don't really know how they're going to pull off this win in game 7.
It is insane that he's at this level based on like what the pathway has been to him to even like I thought we had seen the last of Joel Embiid this season before the playoffs started. I did not think there was a chance of his returning. I do want to address this comment. Shout out to our guy at Frame McRib. And by the way, love the comments. Keep them coming here. I don't mean to come at you with this right here. He says, other reason makes it hard to me to believe in the Sixers is that they are 0-18 when trailing 3-1 in a series and haven't beat them since 1982. I'm just not a guy that buys into those trends. And I understand that those are true statistics. I've seen them all over the place right now. What I am saying is this is a different Sixers team and this is a different Celtics team. And there is context to every single one of those situations. It is not easy to climb out of a 3-1 hole. It does not happen often at the NBA, but there also is very unique situations in this. We did not see Joel Embiid for the first 3 games of this series. This is a Celtics team that, as you pointed out, did largely overachieve in the regular season right there. It's not an easy task. I'm not saying that this is a guarantee that this team is going to absolutely win the series right now. But what I am saying, what is very clear right now, is it is one game for all the marbles. They have done the work to dig out of that hole. It is game 7 for everything on the table. And for what it's worth, like, this is now the situation. It is a 1-game sample size. I don't need to hear about trends.
It's also, I mean, most teams haven't won when they've been trailing 3-1. The Sixers would be trying to become the 14th team in NBA history to come back and win a series trailing 3-1. So, look, the Celtics do have a good culture, and I think they're well coached. And I don't think they're going to lay over in a game 7. But I think the Sixers are the better team. They've proven they can win on the road. And the crowd was great tonight, by the way. Incredible crowd in Philly. They deserve a ton of credit. When Drummond hit that 3 in the corner to close out the quarter, and it didn't count, but it felt like it counted. It was worth 3 points for what it did to the crowd, and just Embiid was running off the bench, the energize. It was probably worth more than 3 points, even though it ended up being 0 points to the scoreboard. But that was an incredible moment, and it kind of just showcased of that was one of the best Sixers crowds we've seen in a long time, and they haven't had a moment to celebrate in a decent amount of time. So I thought the crowd was really good. Just an unbelievable night in South Philadelphia. Good vibes all around in the city. I mean, we're not going to mention the Flyers because we don't care, but the Flyers apparently are advancing. But the Phillies, 3 straight for the Phillies, 2 walk-offs today. Just good vibes all around in the city right now.
Yeah, I will say I got hit twice today, walking around Manayunk with a "Did you watch the game last night?" and have
Oh,
never once heard that referred to a Flyers game my entire lifetime
water
right
cooler
now.
talk. Oh, you watched the game last night?
Yeah, but we're not going to go down the Flyers angle right now. Let's talk about this Sixers team because this team is worth giving a damn about, man. I think one of the things that I personally felt throughout this entire season, it's frustrating to me to hear the general perception of the fan base be like, who cares? Like, they're just going to flame out, all that. Every year is different. Every team is different. And I know that there's been a ton of adversity, a ton of obstacles that have been thrown at this team, some of them that they put in front of themselves. No doubt about it right there. But this team is worth buying in on, man. They've shown it. And if there is one takeaway from this series thus far, is this Sixers team fought like hell, man. This team scrapped, brought heart, gave everything that they've got to this point. I understand you can throw the two blowouts in my face, but I have a ton of just respect and admiration to the way that they've competed in this series, and it ain't over just yet.
Yeah, the compete and intensity, especially on the defensive end, is really what's been the key for me over the last two games. Two resounding victories for the Sixers with Embiid back. And look, I mean, we're not gonna start talking about the Knicks because the Sixers have a game 7 to win, but obviously the Knicks had one of the greatest by margin of victory, one of the greatest playoff victories in NBA history tonight when they just absolutely boat raced. I think it was 51 points by the final that they won by. So the Knicks are moving on. The winner of the game 7 between the Sixers and Celtics will play the Knicks. But it kind of reminds me of 2 years ago where the Sixers this team isn't a 7 seed. And it's a tough draw for the Celtics because they're not playing a 7 seed based on Embiid returning and the talent that they have and the level Paul George is playing at. And it was the same thing for the Knicks a couple of years ago where the Knicks were the 2 seed and they were playing the Sixers and the Sixers were in a 7 seed. The Knicks ultimately obviously won that series, but still it was a much tougher series than the Knicks would have liked playing a 7 seed. That's what the Celtics are now facing, where it's just a tough draw where you're playing a 7 seed that finally is healthy and getting their talent back, and the big three is clicking in a way they haven't in 2 years.
Yeah, 100% there. So, and like a lot of the issues when we've talked so much about like where this team stacks up in the East, how good the Sixers really are, a lot of the issues are just look yourself in the mirror and fix them. That this hasn't been teams being better than the Sixers. It's been the Sixers not figuring things out or maximizing their potential or like fully clicking in every single category right there. I've been the most encouraged that I've been all season with the way that they've looked in these past couple games. There's a buy-in to a level that we have not seen. It was motivating to me to watch Joel Embiid sit on the sideline, Paul George check out a last game, and him just saying one game at a time, one game at a time. That's the mentality. And now they have it. They got the opportunity for game 7. They got a chance to completely change the perception of this entire era of Sixers basketball, and it starts with game 7 in Boston.
And it's not like this is a team that has this unbelievable amount of playoff experience. I mean, most of the playoff experience comes from Kyle Lowry, who's on the bench and doesn't play a minute. Like Embiid's obviously playing a bunch of playoff series, but
Paul George
hasn't been past second round. Yeah, you're right about the experience. I guess the experience isn't the right word. Playoff success, I would say. Like Paul George played a lot of playoff series. The joke about Paul George has always been that he's not a good playoff player and he doesn't play up to his potential in the playoffs.
Which I reject a little bit of for what it's worth. I think that's misunderstood. He's had his lows, he's had his highs. He's had some flashes. Like and granted, Paul George
it was mostly with the Clippers. He definitely he had some good series with Indiana way back in his career.
Very impressive series.
With the Clippers, he was constantly disappointing in the playoffs, and a big reason why they never made a real run.
But it was also, I believe it was the 2021 season where he basically carried that Clippers team. That was the Paul George year.
Without Kawhi, yeah.
Without Kawhi. Like, he's also had moments, and I'm not like going to be the full Paul George defender. He has his flaws. There's things you can critique, no doubt. But I do think that the reputation is a little bit worse than he deserved for some of those playoff shortcomings right there. And he's now in a role where he's not asked to be the guy. He's not asked to carry this team. He can be third fiddle, and that's what everyone is satisfied with. Paul George himself, with those checks clearing the exact same way right there. So I think this is a little bit of a different Paul George, and this is a message that I've hit on since they signed him. For sure, money was the biggest thing. They offered him a full-scale max contract, and there probably was not another team in the NBA that would have done this. But Paul George very easily could have coasted throughout the rest of his career. He could have, signed to somewhere without any expectations. He chose to leap in the fire, man. He chose to be a difference maker on the Sixers team, and he's done that in this playoff series. He's been a difference maker for them. So shout out to Paul George. I'm happy he's having his moment a little bit, and I would love for him to be a part of this collective unit of sort of rewriting what their NBA legacy is.
This is the first series, really 5-game stretch that I would say he's lived up to his contract. since he signed here 2 years ago. But look, it's coming at the perfect time. So there's no complaining about that. Like if they make a real run and he keeps playing at this level, everyone will say that contract was worth it just for this playoff run. And we'll see what happens in the offseason. It's definitely popping in my mind that he's certainly increasing his trade value like a lot.
We're not doing that
in this
tonight.
Playoffs, but I don't want to do that right now. We're not going to do that. Not until we do an off-season show when the season comes to an end, which hopefully won't be for a long time. But it is worth saying you're right about the role too. Like where in Paul George's past playoff appearances, he's had to be the guy or the number 2 guy. And he just doesn't have to do that. And that's, I think, why he's playing such an elite level. And I read his isolation numbers and his 3-point percentage earlier. He doesn't have to play such a great role. He's doing it in limited touches. And it's like Embiid and Maxey are the guys. And when it's Paul George's time to get a ball screen, when it's his time to cook in isolation, he's doing it efficiently and successfully. But he isn't someone right now that has to have this huge offensive load since Embiid came back. That's the perfect role for him at this point of his career, especially because it conserves energy and that allows him to compete defensively the way he is. And so that's why it's been such a commendable effort by Paul George and really the entire Sixers group right now.
Yeah, 100% there. Now, we've talked about a lot of this from the Sixers perspective right here. I do want to flip things a little. For starters, I got something to get off my chest of Jaylen Brown does not have a single dribble move in his bag. His single dribble move is dribble right at a guy and shove as hard as you can with the off arm and hope the referees do not call it. That is his move. That is what he does on every single possession. You could call a push off on Jaylen Brown on every single possession right there. I just had to get that off my chest for that.
Well, I want to stay there for a second because it's tough. I was texting someone who I play a lot of basketball with. That's exactly how I play basketball is that off-arm move because like I can't create space with my athleticism at this point. So that's exactly how I play. So I was like, I love that they're calling it. But like people always complain to me whenever I'm playing that like you're fouling and pushing off every time. Like if there's no ref there to call it, it's not a foul. But I'm glad the refs are calling it because he was getting away with that all regular season. Yeah. And Shea does it too. And a lot of people are complaining about Shea doing it. And look, you can't really see the visual, but Shea does it lower. Like Shea will push off lower into your stomach.
Like chest.
Exactly. Jaylen Brown does it up to your shoulders. And when you're pushing off like that and extending that up to your shoulders, it's so easy for the refs to see it. And he's got called for a bunch of those. And the other thing is the Celtics move on so many ball screens. They've gotten called for so many moving screens this postseason. And they're all the right call. Like the Celtics are just not as disciplined as you would kind of think for a team that's as well coached and has as much success as they have had this season.
Yeah. The next question I wanted to swing with you is put yourself in Joe Mazzulla's shoes. What do you say in that locker room right now? Do you go hop in your dojo or whatever fighting technique that he loves to practice? Do you go get in a dark space, practice whatever psychopath things that he's into right there? What do you actually say to the troops right now? What is your case for how do you change things up? How do you make Game 7 different than what has been put on display these past 2 matchups?
Look, I mean, I definitely think there's some adjustments that they're going to have to figure out a way to get Embiid away from the rim defensively and find a way to get in the paint, get 2 feet in the paint, stop the Sixers from cutting off their drives, and that's going to create better offensive threes or better threes for them. I think they have to commit heavily to the offensive rebounding a little more, and then I think defensively, I think they need to throw more doubles at Joel Embiid and kind of make Quentin Grimes or Kelly Oubre live with those guys shooting a bunch of shots. Even VJ Edgecombe, I'd be comfortable. Like VJ Edgecombe, your first Game 7 in your rookie season, please beat us from 3. That's what I would be doing if I was the Celtics. And he might. He's an absolute baller, so he might. But I think you can't. There's no answer for the Maxey and Embiid pick and roll. There's just not. You're always going to be giving up something, and those 2 guys are so great together as a pick and roll duo. So that's kind of how I would approach it. And what you're saying is one game for everything. It's one game for all the marbles, and it really kind of depends if Jason Tatum is playing or not. But if he's not, you can kind of go back to your identity during the regular season, which won you a lot of games.
Yeah, 100% there. And we're starting to see some of these quotes filter in from postgame, which are firing me up right all over the place again. Joel Embiid steps to the podium. Shout out to Adam Aronson at Sixers Adam here, who first off points out from Joel, quote, "At some point, I'm about to have an extremely efficient night," which is true. He has not really shot the ball particularly well and is still dominating these matchups. He could absolutely rip off a 40-point performance in Game 7 right there if the shots just start falling at a rate which we've seen him do for a stretch of time. And he also said about the Celtics directly, quote, "I've been playing these guys for so long, I'm tired of losing to them. We have a chance to accomplish something special." I do think that there is something too. Joel has turned a page as, I don't want to say a leader, because that's not necessarily the shoes that he's always been cast in or has kind of refused to fill to an extent right there. But just as like a, I guess, maturity standpoint, this does feel like a different Joel Embiid in the way that he's gone about everything this year, from his management of his body, from his unwillingness to step on the floor until he is at the required percentage, whatever that means internally. I doubt there even is a 100% version of Joel Embiid at this stage of the game. But regardless, right here, it does feel like there's a different Joel, and that gives me hope.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think Maxi's definitely the leader. I think you see that on the court pretty obviously. And I think Kyle Lowry has a huge role too, behind the scenes and on the bench and everything. And he's more valuable than you would have thought, especially this time of year for a guy who doesn't play. It was like, oh, it's just a roster spot that you're wasting on a guy who's never going to play, who's super old. He matters this time of year. I genuinely believe that. But I'm with you on the Embiid thing. Look, then it was an incredible Game 6 win. Incredible Game 6 win. It doesn't really matter unless they win Game 7.
Sure.
We're back to the offseason conversations of how they approach the future and which jobs are on the line and which aren't on the line if they stumble in a Game 7. So it's all focus. It's all energy on Game 7. You can't. It's a one-day turnaround. The game will be on Saturday. You can't really have time to celebrate this win and celebrate how good you've looked the last two games, and maybe think about the fact that you definitely would win this series if Embiid wasn't out. But credit to Embiid for coming back as soon as he did and playing the way he was doing. I mean, we're back to the Embiid falls so much, and that's just always been
push-ups tonight, man.
Thing. Yeah, but every time he falls, there was a couple bad ones tonight, and he was slow to get up. You're just gasping and holding your breath. But obviously he got up, and he should be good to go for Game 7. So before we get out of here, prediction for Game 7, what are you thinking?
Keep the points. Hit me with 7.5, 8.5. You can maybe 3.5. You can keep them all. It's Sixers on the money line. It's Sixers straight up. They're winning Game 7. They didn't come this far to come this far, Sam Oshtry. I do think that there's a different mentality in this team. And I did want to touch on our guy, Andrew Bagley. Shout out to him getting involved in the chat as far as any idea what time. I believe you referenced this at the top here, but it is dependent on this Timberwolves versus Nuggets game, which is currently going on right there. If there's a Game 7 in that will shift things a little bit. It does seem like it's a fairly likely chance that it is a 4:30 tip-off. I will note sportsbooks are currently listing it as 7 p.m. right there. But to answer the question directly, not set in stone at this point in time. So we will check back on that. But to get back to your question, Sam Oshtry, it's Sixers and 7. It was always Sixers and 7. This is the way that things are supposed to go. They did not come this far to come this far.
Yeah, I will say that the Nuggets, who have just been the most blessed team in this first round, because the Timberwolves have everybody out. I mean, Ayu Dosunmu was out tonight. And obviously Anthony Edwards and Dante Vincenzo and Naz Reid is banged up. So the Nuggets got a free pass to what should be a Game 7, but they're down right now. They're down 3 late in the third quarter. So we'll see if the Nuggets can pull this out. They've been a mess. But if the Nuggets win that game, then the Sixers Celtics will be at 4:30 p.m. on Amazon on Saturday. Okay. And if the Wolves win this game and that series is over and the Sixers Celtics are the only game to play on Saturday, it'll be a 7 p.m. on NBC after the Kentucky Derby. So that'll probably wrap up around 7 p.m., probably like 7:12 if we're being honest. But so we're looking at 4:30 tip or 7 p.m. tip. I think the Sixers are going to win. I said it, like, look, you've been the more optimistic Sixers guy, so you deserve all the credit. But I've said from the rip that if Embiid was playing this entire series, the Sixers would win the series. I just didn't think the Sixers could win 3 straight. I do now, because the Sixers are the much better team. Nick Nurse has been the better coach in this series, and Jason Tatum's status is completely up in the air. And I think he might be hobbled if he plays. If he doesn't play, the Sixers big. I mean, I think the Sixers will kill them if he doesn't play. But if he does, we'll see if he's hobbled, if he's a little scared, because he might be play scared.
And guess what? I'm finding out right away. Is if I'm 100%. Nick Nurse in the Sixers, I'm taking it out Jason Tatum.
Absolutely. You're attacking him 100%. You're seeing, but we'll see if he plays. I think whether he plays or not, which is the big question, I think the Sixers win this game. I think the Sixers move on to play the New York Knicks, which that second round series will start on Monday, which would be an incredible, incredible second round series. We were talking about a potential Knicks-Sixers matchup a couple months ago. We did not think that one was coming in the second round. We were talking about it in the first round. But look, regardless of how this series and season plays out, incredible effort from a Sixers team that hasn't given this fan base a lot to be happy about and a lot to cheer about. But I think people are starting to get back in. The bandwagon is back to filling up after it was pretty empty over the last few weeks. So an incredible win for Sean Barnard. You got anything else to add?
I'll just say, as I would consider myself one of the leaders of the Sixers positivity bandwagon right here. Welcome aboard, people. The leader. Yes, I'll take that responsibility. Welcome aboard. Then come on, believe in the Sixers team. What is the point of sports if you are not going to believe, Sam Oshtry? And this Sixers team is giving you reason for that. They've shown heart. They've shown scrap. They've shown damn good basketball put on display in the series right now. This is not your fearful Celtics, mighty Titans that you cannot beat right there. This is a beatable team that you just have to take down one more time to ultimately advance to the second round. There's a lot to get excited about. From Joel Embiid looking like the prime version of Joel Embiid, from Tyrese Maxey evolving into a star right in front of our very eyes, from Paul George looking like the guy that was absolutely designed to be the middleman, the third fiddle to those two right there, to Oubre getting down, being a dog, VJ Edgecombe, get fired up, start believing in this Sixers team. So the bandwagon is open for new takers. Welcome aboard, get fired up, and let's go win a damn Game 7.
There's the pump-up speech, everybody. There it is from the biggest optimist in Sixer land. For Sean Barnard, I'm Sam Oshtry. This was the Sixers wrap-up show powered by 97.5 The Fanatic. We will be back Saturday. Maybe night, maybe late afternoon. We'll see. But we'll be back Saturday after the Sixers game. Maybe Sean Brace will be back with us if he's done going low for the day. We'll see. He's enjoying himself down in Myrtle Beach. Hopefully he'll be back. But hopefully we have many more shows to come after Saturday if the Sixers can take care of business on the road in Boston in a Game 7. For Sean Barnard, I'm Sam Oshtry. We will talk to you on Saturday.